attention span is reduced drastically.
COVID has transformed our lives once for all.
Solution was very, very strong communication.
Working from office and build that camaraderie.
So there isn't something set out in stone saying these are the 5 tenets of our culture, this is how we operate.
New talent coming, ready to put in that effort. Give more and more industry-based project to the students.
I think students have also become more demanding nowadays.
Trust, transparency, communication.
This is like one giant experiment.
Large organizations are very process-driven.
You could moonlight, but you declare it upfront that you're moonlighting.
All such situations, you can't really make exceptions about moonlighting.
With automation and AI, the number of jobs have reduced.
If something is happening in a big way, then it's good to figure out a way to allow it to happen, but in a regulated manner.
I own it end to end, both good and bad, and then learn from that will really make them stand out as professionals.
Tired and frustrated of corporate artificial and plastic talks? Are you frustrated with unskilled YouTube gurus telling you what to upskill, how to cross skill when they themselves don't have any tech background? So here at Titan Stock, we call industry stalwarts from across multiple industries and have them share their views on what they look for in lateral candidates and in freshers. So these are people who've been there, done that, and who are continuing to do. So these folks are going to give you their raw, unfiltered opinion on what they want and what they look for in a candidate and how you can prepare. We will talk about how should a lateral approach every industry and how they should get in, and how a fresher should kind of prepare themselves so that they become industry ready and more employable compared to just another college graduate. Welcome to Titan Stock. Here we are with another episode, again breaking the shackles of corporate world and talking to you straight from the heart.
Today we are here to talk about future of work. So we have, people from diverse industry backgrounds here to talk about all these things today. So we have somebody from a startup kind of a background, and then we have somebody from IBM, who's like the forefathers of IT, and then we have somebody from the industry. So we will talk about all of these things, and then I will add my perspective from the recruitment angle. So welcome to Titan Stock again. So today we have Anand, who is president at Chalo, who's ex-CEO of Vogo, and then he's got into Chalo now.
I'm actually an alumni of Vishwakarma Institute of Technology from the 2006 batch. Post that I did my MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. For the last 11 something years, I've been in startups. I was an early employee at Flipkart where I launched a few businesses for them. Post that in 2015, I started my own venture. So this is Vogo. This is the last mile scooter rental service where you can just pick up a scooter and drop it at a different place. We actually scaled up to be fairly large. We were at 15,000 scooters across Bangalore and Hyderabad. We used to do like 1 million orders a month. We had raised multiple rounds of both debt and equity capital. So, and scaled actually from like a small house for the first 3-4 years to almost 250, 300 people towards the end, right? So I ran this company for around 7 years. Then sold it to the company where I now work, which is called Chalo. Chalo sells B2B SaaS software to bus operators, both in the government and to private operators. At Chalo, I look at taking the core Chalo product, which is the B2B SaaS product, and taking it international. Currently, we are in the Philippines and do like $500,000 in revenue run rate. Yeah, that's me.
Great, Anand. Jayesh, about you and what you do at IBM and all of that.
Sure. So I am an alumni as well of VIIT. I passed out in year 2000, did my industrial engineering there. And since then, I have been in multiple roles in different IT companies. So started my career with Wipro, which hired me from campus. At Wipro, I kind of started as a software developer, worked with multiple customers at multiple locations across the world. Grew up into project manager and delivery manager, and then moved on to Cognizant, and then currently at IBM through my career. At IBM currently, I look after the CRM software development teams as part of IBM's Chief Information Office. So what that means is I have 5 software development teams which manage the CRM product used by entire IBM. So we support around 30,000 IBM sellers and several partners who use this product and work in an agile way, building this product, helping our sales team leverage the latest technological advances like AI, etc., on the CRM platform, and in that process, get more revenue for IBM. So that's about me.
Got it. That is very helpful. Yes. So now over to you, Vivek. Wanted to understand, what you do at Vishwakarma, the VIIT, and then you can go from there.
Great. Good morning, all. My name is Vivek Deshpande. Little about myself. Passed out from Pune University, undergraduate and postgraduate. Then Nagpur University, PhD, and then I have done my post doctoral research from University of Bulgaria, Sofia. That is in Europe. Then I joined joined industries, mainly the electronics and telecommunication industry. And then turn out by not by option but by choice to the academics. So in all total experience 33 years now, and so being an experience of both academics and industry, so I know that what actually the industry wants, and that is what exactly we are doing at VIIT, commonly known as Vishwakarma Institute of Information Technology. Started in 2002, good legacy of 22 years now. And earlier it was started with only three divisions. As the name suggests, information technology. We started only the electronics, telecommunication, computer, and IT. But later on, we started from 2007 and 8. We started mechanical and civil as well. Right now, we are having more than 5,000 students in campus, and mainly focuses on the project based learning. So student makes hand dirty only, so not for the theory chalk and blackboard kind of things. So we are now giving a project based learning, problem based learning, or practical hands on more than on theory. That's from my side. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you very much. Thanks for all of that. So wanted to talk about future of work. I wanted to, kind of talk to all of you about future of work, as in workplaces, work culture, and employees. So, we have three different people from three different facets of life, right? So it's like, confluence of all the ideas. So I wanted to understand how, COVID has transformed our lives once for all. I think there is no going back. Okay, so with that, with COVID, because of the demands of the business and the business continuity, we moved to remote. And then we then wanted people to come back to office when people were reluctant. And then we figured out ways to which we can bring them back to office, and then still some are struggling. And then now I think more or less most companies have adopted this hybrid kind of a model where you work out of office 2 to 3 days a week, and then the remaining 2 days you work from home. So earlier also, before pre-COVID, at leadership levels, this used to be a common practice because leaders folks kind of worked all through the day, and 1 or 2 days when they are not able to, or they are recouping from travel or something, they used to work from home and they'd still be available. So this used to happen in a more unofficial way. Right now things have become more this thing. So I wanted to understand from all of you on your perspectives of how you are seeing, like from a startup's perspective, from from IBM's perspective, and from academia perspective, what you guys wanted. So I wanted to ask you, Anand, so as in wanted to understand. So it should have been a double challenge for you because you sold Vogo to Chalo at in 2022, right? So which is time when people were recouping from COVID, and you were also asking them to come back to offices. That was challenge number one. Plus during an M&A, always people from the company that got acquired feel a little threatened as well. So how did it affect the transition affected your workplace, your employees from Vogo that moved into Chalo, and what happened there?
So I think there were multiple phases of this journey, right? So one was actually just when COVID happened, the first 2 years, before our sale and just after COVID, right? So there the challenge was obviously different, where suddenly we had around 250 people, like I said, getting 250 people, both tech and non-tech, to now start working from home, right? Now compulsorily, not even by choice, is the first challenge, right? How do you actually coordinate? How do you make stuff work? Because a lot of our business is on the ground. Like scooters have to be kept moving. If you're building product features, you need to figure out how people are responding to them. You have to get customer feedback.
Mhm.
How do you do all of that actually sitting out of home, right? So I think that was the first step in terms of just challenges. How do you transition an online plus offline business um, to largely to a work from home setup, right? So that's one. The second part was when we started to look at the sale itself, right? And I think pre-sale and just during that entire phase, um, the most important thing is how employees are feeling, right? Because someone like me who is actually directly talking to the acquirer is completely plugged in. I know that um, what's going on, how people are going to be impacted, who's in, like how interests are being protected, and so on. But you can't communicate everything to everybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? So at the same time, they are not seeing you every day, so they don't know what's going on, right? So that's like the second phase of the challenge itself, right? And the last part is post our acquisition, right, which is integrating into a new company like Chalo and figuring out how their culture works. How should we, what do we integrate, what do we not integrate, and so on and so forth. And again, how do you do that with a largely people working from home kind of culture, right? So there are three phases in which this happened for us in that 4 year period, right? In the first, I think across all the three phases, the simplistic answer is that the solution was very very strong communication, right? Which is at all frequencies, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly. You be as transparent as possible. Actually, you be more transparent than you would if you were all working from an office, right? Because when you're
Mm-hmm.
working from an office, information just spreads automatically, right? Because everyone is sitting, if it's 200 people, everybody's sitting on, let's say, one floor, right? So you don't necessarily need to tell people everything that's going on. It, like, information spreads on a daily basis. People know what's going on, right? But in when you're doing work from home, you have to put a significantly higher effort, right? Whether it's business as usual or you're growing, in both situations you have to do that. In an M&A, even more so, right? So what we did do, because it was in the M&A situation, for example, when it was later in the later when we knew for sure that the deal was happening, we actually had the next level of team and even more people, right? Anybody who wanted to, maybe like 30, 40 people, the leadership minus one, minus two, actually sit down with the acquirer and just do a ask me anything kind of session, right? This was like even 4 months before the acquisition happened,
Mm-hmm.
so that people are comfortable because rumors spread irrespective, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of communication, doing all hands monthly, talking to people on a daily basis, some of these disciplines, even if you miss it when you are working from an office, it's okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in a work from home setup, it becomes super important.
Mm-hmm.
So doing a lot of that, over communicating as much as you can, right? Giving people the that believe that you have their back, you're looking out for them, right? Whether it is business as usual or during M&A, I think that was the most important thing that we did, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I would say this is like a overriding kind of factor. uh, Post the acquisition, again, very different challenge, right? Because what started to happen is we uh, post the acquisition, we started to move to a hybrid kind of culture,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where slowly we started asked people to come into office as per their convenience, and then a particular number of days, and now it's actually 5 days a week, right? So again, both the companies are moving from a work from home ish kind of culture during COVID to a work from office kind of culture, where uh, both were coming from obviously different backgrounds, because the head office of Chalo used to work from office even during, like, post the second wave, whereas Vogo was entirely work from home till the acquisition itself. So moving that to hybrid and then 5 days a week is what was the third phase of how this happened, and also getting different companies to work together, right? To do that, I think one of what really helped was actually working from office, because the way I had my team work over those 7 years, right? Whether it's work from office, work from home, that culture was very different from what we had done when people were, how Chalo had built its culture over the last 10 years, right? And putting those two together, getting these people to work together, because we also moved people across teams, making all that happen, work from home, was actually fairly difficult, right? I'll talk more about my general philosophy about this whole future of work later, but this is broadly what our experience was like.
How difficult was it to bring them back? Was
To
it easy?
office,
Yeah.
it actually took time, right? And I think for different uh, kinds of people, treat work from home and work from office differently, right? So for a certain set of people, and this applies at like all levels, whether it is leadership till the rank and file. Some people like working from office, right? So when they come back, they realize that they were missing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they want that this of actually meeting people. There are obviously a bunch of downsides to working from office also. It's not like it's all rosy. There's commute, there's a bunch of other reasons to not work from office. But I sort of felt that there are a large section of people who liked it, right? They're happy that okay, the 2 years of working from home are coming to an end, right? There were a section of people who hate commute office. They believe that it's the worst possible thing a company can do, right? If you ask me to come back to office, then I will leave, right? So I think there are people at like different ends of the spectrum. Uh, but I think it took us like a year and a half to slowly ask people to come back to office and actually start working at office. Uh, n- it's difficult to say now whether everybody's happy or not, but we do have like 100% of our people working from office today. Yeah.
That's good. Good to hear. So,
Yeah.
Jayesh, I wanted to understand. So, has IBM reached 100% back to office 100% of the time, or what are the challenges you face? As a larger organization with larger vested interest and with a lot more people with varied backgrounds. So, what is that you faced, especially in coming back to office?
Yeah. So for us, pre-COVID, we were working 5 days from office, all days from office, and especially in our teams, it was a social contract that we are an agile team building software, releasing it to our end users every week. And to be able to do that, we needed to work face to face closely as one team, right? But COVID changed all of that, right? We were made 100% remote, as he said, Ajay said, not by choice but by circumstances, right? And then we realized that hey, if you have certain things in place as a team, right? Trust, transparency, as I said, understanding of our roles, the team setup, which we intentionally made very cross functional, right? For example, whatever the team needs to build software and release it, all the skills were within the team. So that really helped us work quite efficiently even in 100% remote setup. And then as kind of COVID um, challenge reduced and we started looking at okay, now let's explore opportunities to come back. It also took us almost couple of years to decide on what works best for us. But IBM has realized that a hybrid is the way to go forward. And we will likely never, I mean, not as an IBM employee, I'm speaking personally, I feel that we will likely never go back to 100% working from office in many of these IT organizations or tech organizations, and it's likely going to be a hybrid setup, whether it's 2 days a week or 3 days a week. It will likely be something like that in many organizations. For us now, it is 2 days a week, and the way we managed to make it happen is that when we realize that okay, now we probably are starting something new as a product development, or we have some new initiative that is starting. For such initiatives, we realize that it is important for people to work face to face, collaboratively in person, to avoid some of the challenges or extra communication that is required in remote setup. So we started by bringing a small team back to office voluntarily. And again, it was the same experience where some people wanted to come back. They were really bored with working 100% remote for 2 years or so and were keen to come back. So we started with those team members. We also understood that many of the team members had moved to their hometowns, right, during COVID. And some were reluctant to come back, or had some personal challenges because of COVID. So we took it step by step. First started with people who were ready to come back, looked at what kind of experience they had in coming back, kept it completely voluntary as to number of days they wanted to come to office. Gradually then we requested teams to form their own social contract on the days they want to be in office, the days, the kind of activities they want to perform in person in at office, rather than just saying okay, hey, you have to be in office. So think about what do we want to plan for next iteration, and doing some retrospective about how things are going. agreeing on ways of working while we are at office versus we are remote, right? If team members, some of the team members are remote, what kind of social contract they have. So all this has taken us a year to kind of settle down after we started returning to office, and now we see a more or less 100% of our team adhering to the social contract they themselves have created, which is we'll work 2 days at office, all of us, and for other 3 days, the way of working we had while we were 100% remote continues. And those same values, trust, transparency, ensuring that we communicate little more when we are remote, ensuring that everybody is on the same page as far as how things are progressing, people are available when there is need to support, even if they are remote. All of this has helped us establish this way of working, which is going quite well. So when we are in office, we focus on, okay, what are some of the things or the activities that we must perform in person, like planning, solution design, discussion around some of the challenges we are facing, getting feedback, reviews, retrospectives, and then everybody kind of goes back to their respective remote setups and continues work, and we meet every week, so that way if something needs to change, that also gets discussed and we continue. So it's working. It has taken time, but it's working quite well now.
So you've adopted more of a voluntary approach than kind of a top down thrust it down their throat kind of an approach.
Yeah, it started like that. We have thankfully in our team, people kind of understood why we were trying to do this. Some of the I wouldn't say that all of it was completely 100% voluntary. Like, so initially it started with, okay, let's get people voluntarily, and then we also push teams to form that social contract. Now, we had cases where some of the team members are not willing to adhere to that social contract that the teams had agreed on. So in such cases, the managers had to kind of jump in and say, hey, couple of members, take them aside, talk to them, and say, hey, you as a team agreed to this. Now, what are the challenges in adhering to it, right? So maybe one odd cases we had to make it mandatory for those individuals who are not kind of aligning to what the team had agreed on. But largely, I agree, or I would say yes, we were like lucky, I would say, that our teams were keen to come back and continue in that hybrid mode.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
And coming back to you, Vivek, especially in colleges, right? Kids that got used to COVID are right now in the final years. In their first 2 years, though, were in COVID period, are in the final years. How
Yes.
are kids coping up with getting back to college? And are there any specific challenges that faculty are facing with these set of folks who are used to the remote way of college and its education?
Yes, yes. Certainly, there are challenges. The before pandemic and after pandemic case is 180-degree out of phase for as far as the academics or students are concerned. There are two, three challenges. First challenge is students' attention span is reduced drastically. Earlier, it was say even 10-15 minutes, but nowadays is only 2-3 minutes. So it's very difficult time for us how to keep students in the class attentively. That is the first challenge. Second challenge is in pandemic, the habituals is certainly from online knowledge. So what were the online lectures by Coursera, by NPTEL, by different IIT professors are already there. The knowledge are already there on the internet. Why you should come to college? So that is another challenge for us. So even if we are a knowledge giving institutes, still the staff members or faculty members are also struggling to how to retain the student in the class and even in the college itself. So there are multiple ways how we are going for that. Third challenge, assessment patterns are changed drastically. Earlier it was only a theoretical mid-sem examination, end-sem examination, theory weightage are more, but now we have to go for more or less formative kind of assessment. Viva, after each chapter ends, take a viva, take a small quiz kind of things, So Viva, then presentation skills, then you can have a seminar, you can have the other problem based kind of a छोटा सा project दे दो उनको, then assess on that, something like that. So things are changed from only a theoretical kind of change to a problem based kind of learning. So we adopted that pattern. Fourth and most important challenge is the writing speed and writing eligibility of the students is reduced drastically. Every examination the students give the request, please increase 10 minutes, which is again a serious challenge for us, for student as well, because they lose their writing speed and the writing capability, because only thing everything is now online. But we change, we give generally, because we have to test the students, right? So the time is 5-10 minutes either udhar, it can be happened, right? So we give time, we chase the students through theoretical knowledge as well, because that is only for the remembrance, right? You heard about the Bloom's taxonomy, right? So in Bloom's taxonomy only a lower part of the prism is a remembrance. As we go on higher part, the remembrance doesn't matter. Okay, so like a history, you doesn't want to mug up about the different kind of 1920 ye hua tha, something like that. So you have to apply something on either through projects, either through analytical problems, either through structural problems like mechanical and civil people are does. So these are the challenges, and we overcome through the multiple assessment techniques, not only theoretical chalk and talk kind of things, but the multiple techniques. Thank
Got
you.
it. Got it. I also have the same belief. If you are, kind of, testing a students on his memory power,
Yeah.
you're comparing intellect to a pen drive,
Right.
and the pen
Correct.
drive will win 100% of the time.
Correct.
So if a human brain is the one that created pen drive so that it can do more creative things,
Yes.
not to compete against the pen drive in itself.
Absolutely.
So that's something, I think students have also become more demanding nowadays, versus saying, oh, professor bola, I have to do it, to I want this, how can the professor help me?
Right.
So that is something that I've seen, because these are the future of workforce, right? And that's the people that we will have to deal with
Yeah.
on a regular basis. So then, coming back, so I have a thought process here. This is in, like you said, hybrid is there to stay. Probably not going, like, so there is this EV craze, and then there is the regular IC engine. Okay, so then there is something called a hybrid, which runs about 1,000 kilometers on a single tank fuel, and does not you don't have range anxiety also. So instead of like 300-350 kilometers in a single tank, you run 1,000 kilometers. You also optimize both for electronics as well as for IC. So
Yes.
you get the pickup as well as you get the range and the economies of scale as well. So you get all these three in a hybrid vehicle. So compared to EV, hybrid is better, according to me at least, because you don't have those fears, plus you get more bang for the buck, right? So that is what I'm saying. So I wanted to understand, is hybrid here to in this kind of this thing, how do you build resilient organizations, Jayesh, and what are the key attributes that a resilient team has, and how much does the leadership have a role to play in this building a resilient organization?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll start with little background about what happened to our team during COVID, right? So, um, just when COVID happened around March 2020 timeframe is when I guess first odd case showed up in India. We had delivered a fairly large program for the CRM platform we were running at that point in time at IBM, and within couple of months of moving to remote working setup, our organization announced a new CRM platform for the whole company, and our team had to kind of deliver that platform within 1 year. So we this is like was a double whammy for us, right? One, we had just moved to 100% remote, which we were not used to at all, working all 5 days a week from office before that, and we were told to run this new transformation program, um, and deliver it. We were already given a deadline that hey, you have to deliver this program for entire organization within 1 year. So so we kind of took it upon a challenge, and some of the things that helped us really work on this program were, one, we had built this team with the cross functional skills that I talked about. There was also uh, the way we had delivered earlier programs when we were working from office and build that camaraderie within the team, helped us move seamlessly, I would say, to remote, um, and knowing all our team members beforehand, right, knowing their some of their personal challenges, understanding the situations they were in, helped us um, cascade the message about the importance of the program, ensuring that teams understood why we had to work on some of these challenges in this kind of environment. If that meant stretching a bit, putting that extra effort. Uh, so to be able to do all of that, some of the focus areas were like ensuring that we synced up on almost a daily basis about how things were progressing. Transparency in showing the progress to not within the team, but even to our business team, stakeholders, the larger program team about how things were progressing. Trying smaller increments in terms of showing progress, and then getting feedback from the end user teams. All these things helped us make gradual progress in delivering this program. One key aspect is, how do you garner trust of your team in such situations, right? Ensuring that you are with them all the time about how things are progressing in both the challenges as well as things that were going well, right? So ensuring that teams could reach out to you without worrying about how they will be seen as if something is not going well, was a key factor in ensuring that we could get through that period of a big challenge of running a transformation program 100% remote in an environment where COVID was spreading like anything, where anybody in your family or larger near circle could have been impacted. So some of these things really helped us get through that situation, and manage it, right? So trust, transparency, communication, knowing your team, being available for your team, all those aspects really helped.
And what part did your leadership play in ensuring that this kind of seeped through the entire organization, or was it, more kind of a distributed approach where everybody pitched in, or was there a crucial part of the leadership that enabled this to happen in a much better sense?
Yeah, so yeah, it was primarily the middle management and the first line management of the immediate teams that kind of took a prominent role in getting things through. Senior leadership played a more of a supporting role, that hey, if you face a challenge, let's discuss about how it could be addressed. But the middle management and even immediate managers of the teams kind of were there for the teams to get through any situation that was there. So I would say the senior leadership was more of, okay, here's what we are there if some teams need some kind of medical support, or the larger policy decisions around, okay, providing reimbursement for some of the ergonomics setup that you may be needing for teams to work from homes, right? Many of our team members live in PGs and these accommodations which are not suitable for working from home, right? So there were these policy decisions that were made to provide teams support to have a good work from home setup, and these kind of also, like, internet reimbursements, chairs, etc. Plus some medical kind of support if there was a situation, and those kind of policy decisions helped as leadership support.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Anand, coming back to you, right? It is often believed that a large organization with a large financial muscle prioritize employee well-being and can actually handle it better. But it's actually the other way around. Startups tend to prioritize employee well-being and their mental sensitive more than very mature organizations because they can make decisions very fast. So, how does Chalo or Vogo in those days? How do you promote employee well-being and keep it at the center so that you retain the best of the talent and all of that?
Got it. I'll talk maybe more about Vogo, the company I built, right? Um, so in my mind, one way of sort of looking at this is to say that larger companies are more process driven, in terms of they will have a way to deal with potentially every kind of situation. So even employee well-being is process driven in some sense, right? Whereas a small company, and small can be, I guess, anything under 500 people, um, tend to deal with employee well-being through the lens of the leadership itself, which could be the people who started the company or the first level of leadership, right? So it's very, in some sense, very human centric, right? So the function of how the culture of the company is, whether it's employee well-being, how you connect with your employees, is all a function of maybe the top 5 or the top 10 people, right? And how they deal with their respective teams, because it's a early company typically. It's
Mm-hmm.
not figured out how everything works. So there isn't something set out in stone saying these are the 5 tenets of our culture, this is how we operate.
Mm-hmm.
If it is set up, it may not be followed 100% of the time. So it is an amalgamation of those 5 10 people, right? So I think whether the company prioritizes well-being or not is a function of who those 5 10 people are and how they think about employee well-being. If they are focused more on themselves, if they are focused outwardly, whether they think about shareholders or they think about numbers or they think about people, right? So it's a function of those 5 10 people and what matters to them, right? I think what we did well in our company was, uh, the top 5 6 people were very very high on that people quotient, right? Just on people connect, right? So irrespective of, there may be good for bad first line managers, again because they're growing so rapidly. So the potential is that some will be good, some will be bad, similar with the equivalent of a middle management. But it is important that those first 5 10 people who are in charge of the overall 250 300 people, those guys are good with people. If that works, then the whole company works. So I think what we did well was just that individual personal connect with everybody in the company. If I didn't have it, my co-founder had it. If he didn't have it, then the head of product had it, and so on and so forth. I think that actually changes the game in a small company, right? And that drives the quality of employee well-being, how you're taking care of their mental health, how do you respond to situations. It's very individual and not like defined or disciplined in that sense.
Okay,
Yeah,
this was more on the fly kind of things, but at the end of the day, you're rooted in your values,
exactly.
so that you prioritize employee well-being. Whereas in a bigger organization, for even if they are priority driven or if they are employee driven, it's still the processes that govern the actions that they are able to take.
That's my view, honestly.
Got it, got it. So, and then, wanted to understand from you, Vivek, how do you ensure that the students are resilient during this phase where, the recruitment in colleges is not that great? As in, companies are not hiring in that great numbers. How do you ensure that the students are resilient and get over this phase and then come out successful on the other side?
Yes. Especially in the pandemic period, I don't know why, but somewhat the placement rises by 10 or 15%
Mm-hmm.
in pandemic period. I'm talking
Yes.
about, because everybody are from work from home, and the company can also react. Please sit at home and then do some work. After pandemic, when student joins, you know. You're talking about the there is a some sort of there is a glitch in the placement from the industry side. In the pandemic, and for the resilience, we take the advantage of the pandemic, go to the different industries, because in and around Pune, we are blessed with good industries, manufacturing industries. Then we can have software industries as well. Production is very well done at that time. But all engineers are moved out at their home places, native places.
Yeah.
And there are now chances of getting more work for us. I'm talking about for faculty, for the students both. we take that opportunity to give more and more industry based project to the students,
Hmm.
not by work from home, but go to industry, because there are huge chances of you know labor scarcity, skill person scarcity, and engineer scarcity at the industry side, and we took that advantage. So the resiliency made over there, instead of sitting in the college, sitting in the classroom, take a theory and chalk. Instead of that, go to the industry. Instead of what, instead of teaching what we want, what we know, rather than what industry wants, वहाँ जाओ, make your hand dirty, and get some extra knowledge to us. So that makes student resilient, because even if for X company the student goes for, say, for internship, say for doing the projects, almost 100% are not absorbed over there only. So but the knowledge has to be gained, and that knowledge will be used for getting a pitch at the another industry. So that is what how the resiliency does over there. But resiliency in parts of faculty members are also one of the great challenge at that time. So all of a sudden, normal practices, we can have a 60 70 students in front of us. Suddenly in the pandemic, we don't have that. No eye to eye contact, no confidence of of the, to check the confidence whether what I am teaching is really getting to the students or not. All are Zoom, in even if no cameras are on at that time.
Yeah.
So so there is also challenge from faculty side how to teach the students. So there are two challenges from pandemic side, from the student side, from the faculty side. But because of these kind of corrective actions, the resiliency moves up. Thank you.
Got it. Got it. So I want to, come back again to you, Anand. So help me understand. So there is no one size fits all. Okay. Although hybrid is a new norm, I always believe that working with people next to each other and seeing them in person is the best way, because, a lot of my work was, at a leadership level and an executive level, collaborative, and, confluence of ideas. That's where, you get the best product out. And then there is this middle management where the collaborative work is like, say, 20-30%. And then there is this freshers who believe that they can work like executive leadership, because they feel everybody is working from home, I can also work from home. Where I believe 100% of their learning is from looking at the peer group.
Yes.
You look at the peer groups, not what they teach, what they do, and you learn from that. So when, say, hybrid or work from office or complete remote, it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
Like we get more and more personalized with our marketing efforts, right? Similarly, more and more personalized with our employee engagement efforts is required. So what is your thought on like these three different, like the leadership, the middle management, and the fresh talent coming into the industry? What kind of strategies would work best for all of them?
Right. See, I think there are many axes at which you can look at this, right?
Mhm.
So, one way to think about this whole thing is that working from office has been going on for like 100 years,
Mhm.
right? We spoke about that earlier. And this, I'll think of this as this one giant experiment which is running for the last 4 years, right?
Mhm.
Which could end up in everybody going back to office, going back to hybrid, or like you said, along the axis of different levels of people, right? There are again other axes we can look at it and say that maybe if the company has a largely field operations, it works differently.
Yeah.
If the company has a largely desk operations, it works differently. If there's field plus desk kind of operations, right? More distributed, more remote. There are many ways in which you can sort of look at this and say this is the right way to work for this particular company, right? So I think that's very subjective and context matters a lot. Specifically on this axis that you're talking about, right? Whether leadership, middle management, and so on. Again, I would say it more matter the context of that company matters more than anything else, right?
Mhm.
So if the company has figured out what it does, right? They figured out a way to make money. They're stable. They are growing maybe 5, 10, 15% year on year. In that context, right? Whatever the size of the company, even if it's a 5 people company, I think, and the company as largely does not have churn, right? So that's another axis you can look at. Then these people know how to work well together. So if they go, and the context of the company also allows you to work well together, right? Then moving completely to a work from home setup works perfectly, right? Whether you're leadership, whether you're some middle management or freshers. But I would agree with what you said in the beginning, right? when you talk about freshers, right, and when I think of myself, when I think of the set of people we put together in the companies I have worked at, I think for freshers especially, it is very important to work out of the office, right? Because, and it can be for a period of time, it can be for X amount of years in their career, but a lot of that learning happens by sort of looking at what other people are doing, and that can be just your peers, it can be people one level up or two levels up, right? And that's how you will grow rapidly, right? uh, More than what the company needs, I think just from a fresher perspective, it matters what that person needs, right? If they are in a role which is completely icy in nature and there is nothing to learn, it's a very specific do A task B, task C, task D, then yes, maybe it makes sense. But even then, if you want to move on from doing task A, task B, task C, task D, you will have to learn what other people do and what people like a level up and below beyond do. I think that factor is super important for freshers. So in any context, I would say freshers should be in the office if they can, right? It's best for them, even if the company doesn't need it from them. Because the company doesn't necessarily need that person to grow, right? It's
Mhm.
more important that person needs to grow for like himself. The second part of it in middle management, again, context, right? Low churn, stable business, irrespective of size, you could be working out of home, right? But if you are a first line manager, your responsibilities again to these potentially these freshers, right? If they are not going to learn from you, who are they going to learn from? They learn from each other, right? If they are sitting in office and you're sitting at home, doesn't necessarily work. I think from a first line manager plus freshers, in my head, largely work from office. Good for the first line manager needs to be there for the freshers, and the freshers need to be there for themselves. Beyond that, again, I think context matters a lot more, right, of that company. So depending on the context, the middle management and leadership who have been there for a while, who understand how the company works already, they can, depending on the context, what the company needs, they can be at home or at office. That's my thought.
Got it. So, as in, how I see, especially here, is that, if somebody in the middle layer chooses to work from home, right, or work remotely 100%, right, they are essentially killing their own opportunity of growing up in the organization, because they are an individual contributor, which means they are a silo in itself. The day I get a cheaper or a more efficient option than them, or I can automate, he is a disposable asset for me. Unless he comes to the office, he builds a relationship, he's a more of a team person, does more than what his job requires, right? Only then he is more critical. Because I've seen, so there is a site reliability engineer is a very, very monotonous job, so he has got nothing to interact with people. And I also see that technology people, they think that communication is an added advantage, not a requisite. And I see, as the things evolve, right, without communication, if you're just technology, then you're a cheaper version of chat gpt, or probably a costlier version of chat gpt.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense. Because I am talking. So I what I want to do is that I want to take a position opposite to you to get the best out of you.
Sure.
But at the same time, I also feel that especially for the middle management, if they think they want to work remotely permanently, they are going to be churned out very fast. They will not even know, because there is another 20-year guy willing to work double the hours
Yes.
for a lesser pay. So if then I can have two people do the same job and then easily discard you. And I don't even see you, I don't even have feelings or remorse that I'm removing you out of work. You're just
Yeah.
another employee ID in my register, right? So an employee ID in a register with a fixed expense.
So we actually have seen different flavors, and we have seen where middle managers and first line managers have taken action to be in office. We have seen their teams do better in terms of ability to deliver, quality of output, team bonding, attrition, all of those parameters. Managers who have taken initiative to be in office with their teams have had teams doing well, compared to managers who have uh, used COVID or remote work to their advantage and stayed at home as much as possible, not taken initiative to bring their teams back to office. Their teams kind of have had challenges, attrition plus team bonding plus quality issues in terms of their delivery and so on. So we have pushed actually managers to come to office before our teams, and that has helped. So I agree with you actually that managers have to take the initiative, help their teams understand the benefits of actually being at office, the advantages, what in-person being at office could do, and drive that with their teams.
I think if they don't take that initiative, right, eventually they will be culled away, right? That is what I believe, at least. Organization, especially services organization, as I understand, which is the larger employment generator in India. So for them, the gross margins work as long as they keep getting in, because if the projects, billables are not increasing at 10-15% every year, it's kind of stagnant but they have to give increments to every employee who is sitting in on the floor. So if they continuously keep increasing their costs, their gross margins would not just matter. So in that case, what happens is I will be forced to a situation where I will need fresh talent coming in, and I expect a particular amount percentage of churn so that I continue to keep my gross margins. And if that churn doesn't happen by itself, then I lay off people. And I also see that right now, I see it more like a stock market dumping, a talent market dumping. The cost of talent have increased post COVID,
Yes.
kind of permanently. Companies don't like it. So they are using their muscle, dumping talent back in the market and making sure that there is less demand, so that there is more people who are willing to work at a lower salary. I feel they're just playing with the supply demand gap, because it's not for them, according to them, it's not good for the industry to keep the talent cost keep rising, right? So that is how I see it. So do you see that as a strategy, or do you see, it's more like demand, or is it a
And
permanent thing?
more than cost, I mean, cost is not the only factor, I would say, right? I mean, that's not the only angle that companies are playing in this talent market. What we are seeing is the talent which is coming from colleges uh, has much more hands-on experience compared to the talent that was coming from colleges 5-10 years back.
Mm-hmm.
And they already have done internships, they have done some projects. In as far as software programming is concerned, they have pretty good skills. And some of the employees who are at, say, 5-10 years of experience already on teams, um, uh, they are kind of finding it challenging to keep up with skills that are in demand today. And and it's more of a skill question than cost question as far as managing talent and demand is concerned. That's what how I see it. So so on one hand, you have this new talent coming ready to put in that effort, stretch effort, quickly ramping up on skills, um, cross functional as far as skills is concerned. So for example, not just one area that he or she is proficient at, but multiple areas. If a new area like AI is coming or cloud is coming, they are able to quickly ramp up on it, contribute. Whereas some of the experienced team members or staff who have been in one particular area, have only one um, technology skill experience, they are finding it challenging to diversify and ramp up on multiple new areas that are coming up, and in that process are likely getting left behind. And when the organizations have to look at, okay, is there something, if I need to really take a call on who I want to let go from my team, these are some of the factors that come into play rather than just the cost.
Got it. I also feel that, because I feel the middle layer, right? They've gotten very comfortable and they're not very good at unlearning and relearning. It's easier to teach a fresher something because
Yeah.
he's much more, easily impressionable, and he'll absorb the skill and then get faster to the market. So and the middle layer also has an expectation that the company should take initiatives to kind of upskill them, or bring them up to speed, whereas they don't see it as their responsibility to find themselves to fit a job market. So that's where I see it. So as in, I'm just taking all different kind of positions to get the best answers, and then kind of understanding from students perspective, right, Vivek? I wanted to ask you, like, let's say, for example, students nowadays are asking for remote internships, where we are telling, even after joining as a fresher, as a full-time employee, you need 2 to 3 years at least minimum for you to have a good peer group learning and
Yes.
understanding, but they want remote internships. What is their thought process? Why do you think they want remote internships now, and do remote internships really help them shape as a person?
Actually, not. Actually, not. As rightly delegates, industry delegates say that students must be there in the industry, face to face. Uh, say, say for example, mechanical and civil students can go directly to the industry, right? So how they are having the remote internship or work from home kind of internships? No, they had to go for that one. As far as the IT jobs are concerned or IT internships are concerned, uh, students may demand for the work from home kind of structure. So remote internship, घर बैठ के. Uh, there are two school of thought over here. One is whatever the task or job given to the intern for say for example 8 days, if the students are doing that job at working from home, what is the harm in it? That is first. Secondly, but what about the skills that you rightly say that when student goes to the industry, multiple skills he acquire, kind of life skills, right? So उसमें communication skill आता है, presentation skill, you can have the interpersonal skills, networking that is the best suited over there. But what about the when we are going for the work from home? So there are companies who offer work from home kind of things, or there are companies say like mechanical civil companies, no, you have to come over here only. And nowadays uh, I don't know about the Bangalore, but in Pune the train happens that तीन तीन आ जाओ 3 दिन घर बैठो. That is what if for internet as well, for internet as well.
Okay.
Yes, so it is a kind of hybrid.
For us, internship is 100% office.
Yes, it should be actually.
It is 100% office. Even graduates, once they join as full-time employees, we push for them to be in office as much as possible,
Yes.
so that they can learn from their peers. There's, as Ajay said, there's so much when you're at early stages of your career. All your learning is by looking at people, by pairing up with other team members, and participating in some of the development activities that happen impromptu, right? Somebody is facing a design challenge, just get on a whiteboard, discuss about what potential solutions are, try out something. Yeah, all those things doing remotely is a big challenge, and for us that's why we have mandated that all internships have to be in office.
Okay. Anand, drawing a parallel, okay, help me understand. I don't know if this is out of whack or what. So, like, say, dating used to be traditional, where you can meet a limited number of people, limited by your geography,
Hmm.
okay, and then you had to go through the grind to eventually get it, and then it became online. Tinder, Bumble, kind of revolutionized. You could meet, you could, prospect a lot more people, and then decide who you want to meet. And then eventually, the objective of a Tinder or a Bumble is to, have multiple conversation and meet in person. So I believe, so when I look at, let's say, 100% from office, I look at it more like, traditional dating methods. Yeah, 100% work from home is like Tinder and Bumble. What is the point of, being on Tinder and Bumble if you're all the time going to be just chatting?
Hmm.
So, and then, hybrid is where I feel like, you prospect on the app and then you eventually, do meet. That is when you build a connection and you build a career. So something I just wanted you to draw a parallel on this, not on the agenda, by the way.
So, fortunately or unfortunately, I got married 12 years back, so I missed all of the Tinder, Bumble, Hinge era of life. But I think the analogy is apt in some sense, right? So
Mhm.
if you are always working remotely, it's unlikely that you will actually build a deep connect with either your peers, your manager, or the company, right? And I think that's to me one of the core advantages. So core disadvantages of working from home, because you may be able to deliver the outcome, right? If depending on the kind of context and the kind of role that you are actually performing, but the life skills that we were talking about earlier, right? Just you growing as a person. I think at whatever level you are, even leadership or a fresher, I don't think that happens unless you are around people, right? Most people, or maybe all people, grow by looking at what other people are doing, right? We are inherently tend to mimic in some form or the other. I think that is super important, right, for you to develop those relationships, because I mean, most of us are in our 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever it is, right? A lot of your relationships in and outside of work tend to be people you've met at work, right? If you don't have that, then like when you retire and you've stopped working, what do you have, right? So that's my way of looking at this.
So I have
Mm,
observed this. So Jayesh, I wanted to come. So this is a
yeah.
fairly large organization that I hired a site reliability engineer for. The guy is a fantastic guy. The team that hired him is also a fantastic team. Okay, this guy joined. He worked there for about a couple of months, but the team never got the trust to share the entire credentials with the SRE. And this guy had been requesting it over multiple emails, multiple calls, and all of that. And they were like, yeah, yeah, but never went through. And then it went to a point that the SRE got really pissed off. And he's like, boss, I'm resigning. I cannot work. You don't give me access. I don't. The trust itself is in
Yeah.
the basis of that employment is trust. The trust was never built. He wanted to sit out of Hyderabad and work for a Mumbai company which wanted in person but agreed to remote because they did not have an option.
Mm,
And then eventually, after 2 months, it fell out. So it was a lose, lose, lose for all the three parties, including me.
yeah.
So I had to refund the money. The candidate lost the job and was without a job for 2 months. And the company that took a gamble also, kind of went back on its stance. And all of this happened. Everybody is pissed off. And then there is a professional email saying that we really appreciate your association with the organization. We wish you the best and have a great career ahead. Where this guy is cussing about that guy to me, that guy is cussing about this guy to me. But then, on an email, if you look at it, it looks all
Smooth.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how do you think, working out of office is essential to building trust and also keeping your employment safe? And how easy it is, how easy it is a decision to fire an employee that you've known, met, and spent some time with versus somebody who you've never met, he is just another email ID.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that working from office is important to build trust. Okay. One thing that we did when we hired during COVID time was that we talked about the base location, irrespective of the employee joining remotely, right? So we very clearly communicated that, hey, we are hiring you for Bangalore location. We operate out of Bangalore. Right now, we are working remotely, but eventually, when we come back to offices, Bangalore will be your base location. So we felt that it was prudent on us to be very transparent about our expectations and setting right expectations around being back at office whenever the situation would arise. So that was one thing we did. While we hired people remotely, we took extra effort to ensure that they felt part of the team, right? So there would be, like, especially some kind of face-to-face connect, even if it is over one some kind of remote tool, to talk to new employees, understand if they had all the tools and access everything in place for them to be productive and so on. So those were some of the actions we took. Now today, if you see, in hybrid kind of setup, we see that employees realize that there is benefit to be at office. Benefits in terms of knowing other team members who they likely did not know if they joined during COVID period of time, working on some critical issues that get resolved faster if you are working at office face to face, and also new projects. Like, for example, we see different flavors. So we have recently launched a new project, which we at IBM call as Client Zero. So for example, IBM has a software product team, IBM has a research team. So they are building something new, and it needs to be um, jointly built with someone in house so that they could scale it up and be the first users of that product. And our team is kind of working on one such product, and we realize that to be we almost have to work in a startup mode for such initiatives, and being face to face at office even more than 2-3 days that we usually do in hybrid mode makes so much difference in such a situation when we are working on something new, building something new. So we are seeing different flavors of hybrid within our teams also, depending on the kind of projects they are working on. So those aspects also make a difference in eventually, deciding how we'll work and communicate.
Got it. Kind of, I think, is it a safe assumption? So let's assume two, three axes or two, three variables. We will assume it as default, and then they're assuming that they don't move in a startup kind of an environment, or even in a large organization where there is a smaller setup that is, very agile, building something where people need to be in person more than even 5 times a week. That is normal. Whereas when the roles are very defined and it is very hierarchical and very demarcated roles, where most of them is individual contributing, and then in that kind of a situation, then remote can work out. So if employees want more remote kind of a setup, they should go into more traditional organizations with very demarcated roles with slow growth. If employees want more kind of agile environment, fast growth, and do something that makes a difference in the world, then they have to spend more time with each other.
Yeah.
Is that a safe assumption on?
Yeah, I think it's largely going to be true.
So because the guys who are looking for remote jobs, go for traditional companies. So that is an easier way to do it than in a startup.
Actually, I mean, there were some startups which proclaimed to be remote first, right? Especially during COVID time and post COVID initial few months. There were so many of these. Misho comes to my mind, which said that we are going to be remote first company where we will meet maybe once a quarter at some place. People can come to offices if needed, but we will not force them to. But what I have observed is all these companies have changed their stance over last 6 months to 1 year, that remote doesn't work for them anymore. And they are calling employees back, right? Service companies are being more direct. Startup companies have also made that distinction very clearly, that remote probably is not the option for them anymore, and hybrid or 100% office is the way to go.
Yeah. No, the way I think of it is like this is like one giant experiment, like I said before, right? And there's no shame in walking back. If you said you're remote first, or you said I'm never going to ask people to come back to office, and a year later you change your mind. I think a lot of the biggie US tech companies have also done that.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely fine, because these are, in some sense, this is a learning period, right? It took us 100 years to figure out one way to work. If you're going to change and figure out what's the new normal is overused word, but what life is going to be like, it may take longer. It may take 10, 15, 20 years to figure out what the future looks like, right, of work. Yeah.
I kind of want to stir the pot a little here, as in, I want to take the employee side this time around. So I want to ask you, as in, like say, uh, the current 8 hour, 5 day work week that we are following,
Yes.
it's about 100 years old. It's about 100 years old. In 1926, Henry Ford, wanted to attract the best employees. And he said, let me give employees more time on their hands. And that was during, the mechanical, production automobile kind of an era where that was happening. When that was happening, right, I wanted to, so that is when they said it's 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. And now that we are talking that with AI eating up most of the jobs, or most of the jobs being automated, only high power brain power is required to get things done. Should we transition into like a 6 hour 3 day work week? Are we ready for it? Do you think that will increase productivity?
In my view, large organizations are certainly not ready to adopt such a drastic change in way of working. Um, in many aspects, they are very traditional in how they look at the 5 day work week, right? So I'm talking generically here, not necessarily about my organization. And that swipe in, swipe out about these number of hours in a day is still seen as uh, a check mark as far as an employee has done his or her work, right? So I would say that it's going to take much more experimentation, um, maybe in smaller teams, smaller companies, trying out things before the organizations are ready for 3 days a week. What the organizations are ready for today is offering much more flexibility to employees in terms of when they work, where they work from. If somebody says, Monday, I don't want to work for some personal reason, and maybe I'll work one extra weekend day or some other day, or I'll work during night on couple of days, or some late hours during another day. And organizations are willing to try that out, but sudden shift from 5 days a week to 3 days a week, the organizations, at least today, are not willing to try that out,
Just,
in
do you
my
think
view.
100 years is a sudden shift?
No,
I
but
beg to differ. I want to
yeah.
understand your thought.
Again, as Ajay said, large organizations are very process driven, right? And for them, this would be seen as something that's a drastic shift, because they have lived through this period of 5 day work week for a long period of time, and that, suddenly moving away from that to just 3 days a week, and also reducing those hours, as you said, 6 hours a day, um, they would immediately see it as a productivity impact, in my view. And also, many of these organizations are customer facing organizations, right? Especially the IT service organizations. So this needs to go along with how the customers are working, right? You have to be with your customers face to face at times. So I still feel, as largely as an industry, we are not ready to take that step. Maybe gradual steps where some experiments are tried out, reduce it to 4 days, maybe in some organization, a small team, try it out, bring much more flexibility in how you work today across 5 days before trying out these 4 or 3 days weeks, is in my view. But I would like to hear your perspective about what you
And then you
think.
tell me, from a startup's perspective, do you think, how implementing this policy will have more people working for you, wanting to work for you, and all of that?
No, by default, if you offer 6 hours 3 day work week, everyone will want to work for you. So it's not. I don't think it's a problem on the person wanting to join you. It's more a problem for the company, if any, right? So the way we look at it, that depend. So I think startups already offer some level of flexibility, right? Not in necessarily in terms of number of hours, but when you actually do those hours, right? You
Yeah.
can come in late, you can stay late if you are a developer, for example. Uh, Teams can figure out their own times unless they need to collaborate with somebody else. But the expectation is you are pushing yourself, you are stretching yourself, right? So but irrespective, right? Whichever kind of company, whether you're doing 18 hours or 40 hours or 70 hours, there is going to be some X amount of time that you're not going to be productive, right? Whether you're at home or at office. It's not like because it's 6 hours 3 days that 6 hours is productive completely. Whereas if you are at the 9 to 5, 5 day work week, that those 40 hours you're productive, you're not, right? There is some percentage in which you are doing time pass. You're basically networking, you're just cooling off, you're doing whatever, right? Uh, and I think that actually is the problem, right? So potentially, if somebody had 6 day, like whatever 6 hour,
3 days.
3 day work week, but is working like 100% of the time without like moving a step, maybe that does make sense, right? But by default, there will be some sort of a productivity impact. So somebody who wants to moonlight, either for learning to make more money, is going to do it anyway, right? And they're actually, again, I was telling them a few minutes back offline that we ended up building a lot of our back end and front end by using senior developers whom we could not afford and get them to moonlight with us on nights and weekends, right? So I'm sure the other way also would be happening in most companies, right?
Uh,
So where
as
my
in,
people are moonlighting for somebody else, for example. Yeah.
I see a thing here. So if you look at employment contracts worldwide, right? So there is a fixed number of hours that the person is committed to, like say 40 hours a week,
Yeah.
for which the person is being paid. So you could calculate an hourly rate. But when you look at employment contracts in India generally, first of all, there is no white collar law that regulates
Mm.
employment in India. So we are all governed by the contract law. So if I as an employer and you as an employee have a dispute, you have to go to court to get
Yeah.
justice, and you do not, as an employee, have the muscle to fight an employer as big as IBM or Cognizant or TCS or Infi for that matter, right? So that is how it is. So, and when people are saying that you should not be working anywhere else, you should in direct or indirect capacity, that by in itself is curtailing their creative freedom. And the same companies have a different yardstick for the senior management, who's on board of 5 companies, who's advising to a couple of companies, and he has a consulting business on the side, and still willing to pay him a full-time salary. So the same companies have a different yardstick for different levels of people. So that is the reason. And I don't you think if somebody was like, say, moonlighting and still could develop a good product to you by moonlighting for you, then in that case, don't you think that that person will be able to deliver it in 3 days? Don't you think that is possible? I'm just asking you. What do you think?
That's an interesting question. So the one way to think about it, we are not talking about making policies for individuals, right? We are talking
Uh-huh.
about making policies for the average, which is for the organization,
Got
right?
it.
So whether 100 people organization or tens of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands, you have to make something which will work like to a law of large numbers, right? So, and I think that's where this stuff comes in, right? Obviously, an individual could end up moonlighting, and he, like I said, he would do it at a 3 day or a 5 day kind of setup. I'm
Mm.
not curtailing his freedom by asking him to work 5 days, because he will do it anyway, right? That's my view of looking at it. And to speak to your other point, right? Some companies have actually started allowing moonlighting, right? Some of the largest startups allow you to moonlight if you disclose at a developer level, at a product manager level, at multiple levels, um, which maybe to some extent addresses the differences that you're talking about, right? That you could moonlight, but you declare it upfront that you're moonlighting, which is what, let's say, somebody in leadership would also have to do if they have to be on a board of a different
Mhm.
company and they are devoting X amount of time elsewhere as well.
So I kind of get that, and I think it shouldn't be mandatory for somebody to disclose, but it should be optional for them to.
I don't know if you have a thought,
I
Jayesh.
don't think it works, right? I mean, many of the tech companies work for certain customers. There's IP involved, there's proprietary information involved, and you can't just make that kind of exception for employees to decide on their own or keep it optional, right? So you have to make stricter policies, especially because many of the employees are working on uh, products that you want to protect. Plus, employees could be working on customer um, IP or customer engagements that require that kind of data protection and things like that, right? I know when I was working at my previous companies, which were IT service companies, there were these offshore development centers, if you have heard of them, right? For especially some of these financial institutions, banks, etc., where employees wouldn't be allowed to even take their mobile phones inside, right? Because of all the security provisions and so on and so forth, or they had to have certain additional access security to access the customer network and so on. Now, in all such situations, you can't really make exceptions about moonlighting, where you can say, okay, fine, if you decide whether you are breaking a policy or not. So the organizations have to decide for employees, and most Indian organizations are going to not allow moonlighting, especially the service and product companies, because it directly impedes the um, level of trust they have with their customers, right, as well as their product IP potentially.
Uh,
So I would
Yeah.
just want to add to this, right? So I would disagree a bit with what you're saying, because I think that if something is happening in a big way, let's assume it's happening in a big way. That's my theory. Maybe not enough data to back that up. But if something is happening in a big way, then it's good to figure out a way to allow it to happen, but in a regulated manner, right? Versus saying it should not happen, but it happens anyway, right? So you could potentially protect for IP, conflict of interest, XYZ,
Yeah.
data protection, and say that these are the conditions under which you could moonlight, and also ask for consent so that you are
Yeah.
protected. So that if it is happening, at least you know it is happening, rather than something is just happening anyway. whether you're a small or a large company. At least that's my point of view.
Yeah, but again, when you are asking for consent or support, right? I mean, what level of disclosure you make? Um, do we have that level of trust?
Uh,
I, I think these are open questions. I probably don't have answers to them today, but maybe if you have good level of disclosures and employees really forthcoming with respect to what he or she is doing, then it's probably a good starting point. I'm still not sure whether employee would disclose everything that
sure.
he potentially is trying
No,
out.
I think we invented a bad word called moonlighting for somebody who is doing something that they like outside of the payable hours, which is what I believe, because you're paying him for 8 hours, he has worked 8 hours for you. Outside that, whatever he does is not our business, to be honest. And when he is making money outside, the middle management feels more insecure and sees, gives a term to this and says, hey, I've not done this in my life. How can he do it? So it's not right. So how can he make money when I have not made money elsewhere? So that is how I look at it. And I believe, he does what he wants to do with his time. Whether he makes money or doesn't make money, that is up to him. So
But there is some level of protection which the company
Yeah.
needs, right? So you can't be Flipkart and working for Amazon, or be in Infosys working for TCS, or the other way around. Those kind of things, which is why consent and disclosures become important. Yeah.
conflict of interest, yes, to an extent. But
IP is
yeah,
also the other
Yeah.
important piece of the puzzle, right? So if you are basically built, let's say you built like the catalog system for Flipkart, and you then go and work with some other e-commerce company to just build the same thing for
With same
them.
logic and
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is conflict of interest. I mean, that's actually IP.
IP infringement actually.
Yeah,
so
it's
that
IP infringement, right? Because that IP is owned by this, and you won't know unless he tells you. So you need to know what he's working on and for whom.
so
Uh,
there is another challenge, right? So if he resigns and he goes, and then he builds it for the other company, so there is no way you can stop, because IP is inside his head. He's not taking some data from your computer. It's knowledge that he has acquired through working with you. So how do you protect that? Because I think we're talking more from a very IP as a sacrosanct thing, and then we cannot violate it and all of that. I believe it's more like a trust deficient society, which is a bigger issue than the IP as a whole.
I don't think this is even an India problem, right?
Yeah,
IP
it's
in
a
general is
global.
sacrosanct everywhere, and if you have built something for someone and go somewhere else, that obviously is in India. Non-competes don't work. But irrespective, when you are here in this company working for somebody else, wouldn't work,
That
correct?
that
Correct.
that
that's
doesn't
So,
matter.
for example, if in your company you would want your guy hiring somebody for your team to be going and working with another consultant and pocketing the money on in the nights, I'm assuming you wouldn't
yes,
want that, right? Because he's using the same relationships
yes.
with clients or with the on both sides to do that. So that's the equivalent in my head.
Okay. That kind of rings the bell, but yes, that is a potential. So I think we'll have to again get into a more customized thing. The reason I'm asking about all these things, right? So there are 1 crore people passing out every year in India, and there are not 1 crore jobs that are being
True.
created. Okay, and with automation and AI, the number of jobs have reduced, as in become more skilled and reduced. So if there are more and more people who are getting, who are not getting employment, and they're young and agitated, this is how civil unrests happen, right? So in that way, that is why they propose something like a universal basic income, where you give everybody money not to work, then nobody would want to work, right? Or else, and it is not sustainable for a country like India as well. So in that case, when let's say, for example, from a policy decision, you make it a 3 hour. It's not like somebody comes and says nobody should work more than 3 hours. It's not like a union thing.
Mm.
Government goes ahead and gives incentives to companies that implement a 3 hour workday, and then overnight it double the jobs in that company. So slowly but steadily, companies, to attract talent, start moving in this direction, because humans with tools have become more and more and more efficient, and I see companies becoming more and more and more greedy, so that they can get more and more and more out of these people than hiring more people. And then, because how I see it is, especially in the Indian founder driven services industries, they want to keep all the profit at the top and pay peanuts to the bottom people. At least in a product services company, right? If I'm a part of the early team, I get to have disproportionate amount of returns for my time because I am building a product and there is a high risk involved and a high reward involved. But in a services company, as in I put, say 70-hour work week, for a lack of better word, and then somebody else takes away all the money, then I'm not incentivized, right? So there are two classes of employees I look at. One
Yeah.
is the one who's building something, like
Well,
say
the way I see it is, it's a supply and demand thing, right? I mean, you said how many engineers do we roll
not
out every
engineers,
year
graduates is a
from
1 crore.
India?
Not
1
engineer
crore
graduates.
graduates. I mean, engineering, if you take maybe 20 lakhs, I don't
Yep,
know,
maximum.
probably. Now, how many of these are really ready for employment um, every year? I would say maybe 25% of those. Rest are really not ready, both from technical skills perspective as well as the other soft skills perspective. So we have uh, an oversupply of talent coming through our colleges every year, being a young country, and it's not industry's job to guarantee a job to every graduate that's coming from colleges, right? So that's where the industry and the education uh, institutes have to work really collaboratively to upskill the talent coming out of colleges to be more employment ready. So that's how I see it, that if the talent is really ready, then the industry will also have to kind of change how they hire today, right? You said many service companies have no, are hiring at a really low salary. The reason for that is, go to tier 2, tier 3 cities of India. uh, they are pretty happy to join at these salaries. That they see this as a starting point of their career, which would take them places. So as long as there are people who are ready to take these jobs, these service companies are not going to increase the base salaries.
I kind of understand that part,
Yeah.
but I feel it's more like a threat. So as in at Vishwakarma there is something that we do, that we work with industry, set up
Yeah.
centers of excellences, where what we do is that we have the industry people coming and giving the know-how, training the faculty and the students, and then the students in the third year kind of get ready, kind of basically marinate them for the fourth year, and then the fourth year they have a full year internship at the company with like fresher,
Yeah.
and then at the end of fourth year you get somebody who's 1 year experience in your company at a fresher salary. So that is something that we do. So we set up centers of excellences. So do you think centers of excellences and then industry projects and 1 year long internships at the company, do you think that will make engineers more employable, or do you think there are some more things that the academia can do?
Yeah. So hands-on projects, right from second year, I would say, which they could work with maybe some of the um, either as internships or within the institute, more research part in their curriculum, if there is an option. Internships really help. We in my business unit um, have for past 3-4 years have been backfilling all our roles only via grad hiring. But we have very specific requirement about the kind of talent we hire, and the kind of process they have to go through. And internship, we do 6-month internship, is an integral part of it, where they learn on the job with our teams, understand the difference between doing some of the educational projects vis-a-vis how a corporate works. And by the end of the internship, as you said, they are ready to be productive on day one when they join as full-time employees. So those aspects really make a difference, and I really appreciate VIT doing that. It should continue. The challenge is, many other institutes are likely not doing it across India. And what I was talking about earlier was more of looking at the overall situation in India rather than to a specific institute. So from that perspective, more hands-on projects, more um, learning on some building something along with internship really gets students ready for taking up that first attractive opportunity that comes their way.
Got it. So Vivek, I wanted to come back on that part. So how do you think, especially, internships and then, working in the center of excellence in your institution have helped the students to get a better opportunity? More about students who are in the middle, who are not kind of finding things, how this initiatives help them to get a better job, and how it has helped Vishwakarma establish much better as a technology college brand in the eyes of the employers.
Okay, so before answering that, we would like to discuss about how the subjects are divided in 4 years.
Hmm.
First year is applied kind of subject, applied science and mathematical subjects. So the 12th ke baad, when students come out for the engineering, he can, regularize with the engineering kind of which the knowledge he gained in 11, 12, how it can be utilized for the engineering. In the second year, the core subjects are distributed. Say data structure, TOC, theory of computing, and all this the subjects. Like in electronics, analog, and digital kind of वो वाला subjects. Third year, we are having professional subjects which is related with that stream. So now the new streams coming up, BTech in AI. So AI wale subjects has to be there for the third year. That is called the professional subjects. And in final year, we are having specialized subject and elective subjects. So these are the distribution of the subjects throughout the 4 year. Uh, you rightly says when we give the projects to the students, so why can't we starting from the third year and final year? So we will give the projects to the third year and final year, and the projects are not given by a person but by the industry. So generally industry throws some problem statements to either to the faculty members or to the students, and they unitely give solutions to that. So it increases the value or weight of the biodata to some extent. Students have, frankly speaking, students have great potential in it. Only it's our job, our means I'm talking about the teacher job, to extract that potential and show it to the industry, so that the industry must know what the potential the students have, and that has to be reflected in biodata. If the students have biodata with 4 or 5 projects, the interviewer must ask about those kind of projects only.
Yeah.
I passed my B in 93. I still remember what projects I did, but not subject, right? Because I have make my hand dirty and throughout the projects, right? So that is what the needed right now, and we are doing in Vishwakarma. We are needing that one. Earlier the companies are coming for only for the placements to the campus, right? Okay, now companies are coming for internship. So through internships, the student can also know the company, and company also know the students. 6 महीने में, right? Earlier it was 2 months, but company ने बोले कि within 2 months it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Student आते हैं, सीखते हैं, and चले जाते हैं. It doesn't work for us. So अभी 6 महीने के लिए. Even those are some companies are asking about more than 6 months. एक साल के लिए भेज सकते हो क्या? But it's very difficult to put it in structure of our curriculum. Now another step ahead, the industry can come for taking the professional electives. Say for example BI, business intelligence, or DevOps, or there are multiple EV के लिए companies आते हैं. Now quantum computing के लिए companies आते हैं. So they are coming, they are giving syllabus to us. बॉस मैं ये पढ़ाऊंगा, 40 या 60 के बैच दे दो. So we are giving assign some students to that those kind of professional electives. Company person physically comes and teach to the students. Out of that 60 only he gives internships. Out of that internships only he gives placement, because the training is already done. So from day one the student is billable with your language.
Yeah.
So that is now a drastic change happens in academia along with the industry. And you rightly say, uh, nowadays academia doesn't alone stand to teach something, to give the education to the students. Along with the industry, along with the research organizations come ahead and it's kind of applied academics rather than only academics. It should be there, right?
Yeah.
So that is and through this process only, the students will be more employable that you required, right? From day one, billable. What extra you want, right? So, and that thanks to industry people, those are coming ahead, and we are giving them a batch. So, so it's a win-win situation for both, right?
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Now, finally coming to the, the key questions, right? So, if somebody has to be relevant, as a lateral in the mid management, let's say, say 7 to 15 years bracket person has to be relevant. What kind of, let's forget about the skills. Okay, skills keep changing. Something relevant today may not be relevant tomorrow. But then, what kind of attributes, kind of people, even though their project has gone out or their technology has gone extinct, you still would find them something, and they flourishing in organizations no matter how the business changes. What are the key skills that you look at, Jayesh?
um, Being a team player. So I'm talking about apart from technical skills. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that a person who's like at a mid stage of their career has at least one core technical skill, right? And ability to pick up new skills that are coming or a requirement of the industry today. One gap that I see in some of the mid-level professionals who are kind of finding it challenging to stay on, or if there is an unfortunate layoff or an action that the organization is taking, or finding difficult to get opportunities, are people who have largely stuck to a technology which nobody wants today, and an inability to grasp some of the other areas that are important, right? For example, um, uh, what we call it as, say, T-shaped skill. So for example, you have one core expertise skill, but you also should know software design, architecture, DevOps, um, um, some of the new areas that are coming up, right? AI and automation, cloud, and so on. So your ability to pick up these areas, irrespective of whether you have kind of had that skill earlier or not, makes a huge difference. In addition to that, understanding the business domain, right? Many of these core technology professionals somehow have just focused on doing the development work that's assigned to them, rather than understanding the business context of why we are building this or why we are doing it and how it benefits the end user, what's the value we are delivering. And then that results in their inability to communicate that to the larger team or stakeholders and so on, and results in them being unable to pick or take those roles that are there, because of the inability to do all these things. So that's one big gap I am observing in mid stage career professionals. And if they can, in addition to being good team players, be like cross functional, skilled employees, and communication, right? Their ability to communicate with multiple team members, stakeholders, business teams. Many of the large organizations are heavily matrixed, right? You have different business units, different roles, hierarchies. How do you manage your work through all these complexities is also a key skill that some of these mid-stage career professionals are missing, and that then impacts their career progress.
Got it. So,
Okay.
so Anand, I want to flip the question to you. The same question, but answer it from a Charlie Munger perspective. Okay, what are the 7 to 15 years are the guys who are the movers and shakers in any company. They're the guys who do bulk of the building, right?
Yeah.
What are the red flags you see in these people? You will never hire them.
Okay, that's an interesting question, right? So I think my experience is more in smaller companies and
Mm-hmm.
doing like a 0 to 1 in a company, or the 1 to 10 kind of stage, right? So for me, I think a red flag is obviously just anything around integrity, trust. Anyone who sort of shows me through their interview process or let slip that they are okay to take shortcuts, right? Um, that's a very very strong red flag, right? And personally and in general, I think in startups require a lot of attention to detail at that stage, right? That uh, you actually see something through and you actually focus and make sure that the small thing also gets done. Somebody who is a bit up there in terms of, okay, seems to have done big things, but during the interview or through their experience doesn't give the sense of knowing every like dot and t in the whole thing. That is also a red flag for me. I would say these two things are like two important things. Yeah.
So, and now I want to come back to this, upskilling, reskilling thing. Okay. So there is a lot of fad in the internet, with these YouTube guys who are themselves, not tech gurus or anybody.
Uh-huh.
They come and tell you, go and learn it in Upgrade, an academy, great learning, this, that, and all. And then they say, you get a course and then you get a job and all of that. And I believe from an hiring perspective, with all the hiring managers and the CXOs that I've worked with, they would much rather prefer a 5 year experience guy than a 5 year PhD.
Okay.
So somebody who has done it, been
Yeah.
there, done that kind of a thing. So do you really believe that somebody by, as in what they usually do, I'll tell you, because of the integrity issue you're talking about, they go and, they're stuck in the middle management, the salary is not growing. They go and do a, an executive course or something in one of the institutes on data science or AI or something, and then doctor their entire resume like they have been an AI specialist since 1995 or something,
Okay.
and then put it all up there and then try and seek jobs, and that's what these institutes also prefer. So what are the, do you prefer people who are like, some external agency certified? Does that even matter when you hire?
Got it. So I think I'll speak to more hiring younger people, right? Because again, our average age would be like 23, 24, 25, right? And
Got
I wouldn't think we've hired too many people at that 7 to 15 years. They'd already be leaders because those are the kind
got
of people who join early stage companies. So when you're looking to hire somebody with that 1 year, 2 year kind of experience, right? I have had actually one positive experience, which is sort of in the upgrade space but slightly different, who train people for 4 months who have just graduated and sort of get them to somebody who can potentially deploy code, right? We have actually had a great experience with that kind of setup. So I think again it matters on what that course content is and what's being done during that course. Also, the interview process for again smaller companies, you actually sit down and watch that person code. You give him analytics assignments, data sets. You make him do it, like sit in the office for a few hours and do it. So at least know that it's not like a bunch of buzzwords on the resume, but the person actually knows how to do what he's saying he knows how to do.
Mhm.
But wherever we've used this, literally that's the only time we have used this, we've had actually a positive experience.
Okay, got it. And Jayesh,
My view is certifications could give you an entry or probably a starting point, but they cannot, like in many organizations, especially as you said, right, mid career, if you have certain certifications, then many organizations kindly use that as a benchmark to say maybe this person knows about this area better than some of the people who don't have the certification. I don't necessarily agree with that. I feel they could give you an entry, they could be a starting point to say maybe the person has the skills, um, and they need to be validated during the hiring process, right? So some hands-on exercises, some as Anand said, coding exercises where you see how the person really uh, thinks about it, right? Some of the if you give them a business challenge, and so how do they derive the actual work to be done to address the business challenge, their thinking, all those aspects matter much more than the specific certifications.
got it. So now, coming to the other side of the equation, right? For a fresher entering the job market, what should he do to stay relevant today and probably for the next 10 years?
Fresher entering the market today, I would say must have some hands-on project experience, preferably as an intern in some company. Should have uh, software development knowledge to be able to be coding ready on day one when the person joins, and not expect the organization to get them spend 6 months to be ready. um, and be good at communication. Those would be three things I would recommend strongly for a fresher to really be potentially marked compared to some of their peers, right? So to be seen differently when say some organization comes to their campus for hiring process.
Okay, got it. Anand, do you hire freshers at all? If you hire, how do you hire them, or how would you like to hire them?
So we've typically hired interns and then put them on, like hired them after their internship, right? That's been our this of hiring freshers. And internships are not 2 months or 6 months also. They have been multi-year, which means and again, these are small teams, right? These are 15, 20 people development team. So four, or probably five of them have come by, joined us in third year moonlights after college. It's not like sometimes it's official, sometimes it's not. But he's actually spending his extra time interning with us for like from first year of college or second year of college. And they have then gone on to come work with us full time. Actually, have become over 3, 4 years leading small teams and helped build some of the stuff from scratch as well. So for them, it's insane amount of exposure and the job at the end of it if they actually do well. That's actually worked well for us because the trust is built. They've already deployed code before they've graduated college, right? It's not ready. It's like they've been doing it. That's what has worked well for us.
Got it. Got it. So, as in, if you are looking at freshers, all preferred route is internship, get a flavor of them, get a cross sectional slice of them, and then
Yeah.
you hire them because you know what they are capable of and what they say versus what they do, and all of that. That is what it is. Got it. So, I think we're done with whatever we wanted to talk for today. What one closing thoughts for college grads and this thing, and how they can expect what do you expect as future of work for them? Each one of you, one closing thoughts.
Okay, I think one thought I would have is just generally always be learning, right? Be curious, try out new things because um, some of this obviously job creation has to happen, but the student himself has to have that drive to figure out a new skill, find himself an internship. The college can only do so much, right? Or the company can do so much because they want to hire. I think a lot of it is actually on the student to find out an opportunity, use whatever tools at his disposal to find opportunities for himself, and then just keep learning over the next 10 years to make it happen.
Jayesh?
For me, it would be a team player and take ownership, right? So the Indian education system doesn't create team players. We from early childhood, our parents want us to be toppers in our classes, right? In schools, you are expected to stand apart. So you are always in this competition where you have to somehow get to the top, right? And in that process, somehow being a team player is not imbibed in us as much as the organizations or corporates want. So how can they learn to be effective team players at early stages of their career? And a key aspects of being a professional is ownership till it is done, and if it is not done well, then also taking ownership of that. So what we see is many of the early stage hires don't have that understanding of what ownership really means. So if they could get that understanding of that, if I own something, if I'm working on something, I own it end to end, both good and bad, and then learn from that, will really make them stand out as professionals. So that would be my suggestion.
Vivek, what do you see? What do you see? As successful students who've gone out of college. What attributes do you see in them that you have observed?
Many rather, not only the academic record, but whether he has taken part in hackathons, different competitions, uh, whether he will be there for leadership quality in different multiple technical clubs which are available in the colleges, say like Robocon, Supra, Baha, different vehicle clubs, the underwater vehicle clubs. So there are multiple clubs available. We see all this in students, and what are the pass out and what are already there in their places. If we saw their student age, they are all gone through this one. So if students are gone through these channels, then there is a possibility of getting success to students.
So what you're essentially telling is that, coming and passing an exam is just another chore.
Yes.
But then, more importantly, what they did in college and then which company they interned with, what they learned there is what contributes more to
Multiple
their success.
projects and internship will increase their biodata, plus the another skills with the clubs, leadership qualities, and the networking.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you. Thanks for coming
Thank you.
and,
Thank you very
sharing
much.
your insights on what we are to expect. And thanks everyone for tuning in today and with another episode with another set of Titans. Meet you soon. Thank you. Hey, thanks for watching Titans Talk today. I hope you had a really insightful session. I'm Gautam, your global CHRO who helps you buy, build, and rent talent across industries, across levels of experience. If you want to hire freshers or if you want to hire laterals, do get in touch with us with the link below, and my team will get in touch with you to take it from there. Looking forward to meeting you again in another episode.